computer network made up of started from.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell us what this was.
It's like a computer billboard.
It's not it's a computer billboard, but it's nationwide. And it's several universities and everything all joined together.
Right.
And others can access it.
And it's getting bigger and bigger all the time.
It came in really handy during the quake. A lot of people, that's how they were communicating out to tell family and loved ones they were okay, because all the phone lines were down.
I was telling Katie, and I've been
talking... But you don't need that. You don't need a phone line to operate internet. No.
Connectivity. We wonder if 50 years ago anyone imagined an America where we spend so much time on screens, as much as 12 hours a day, including TV. The first electronic connector was Samuel Morse. His message across a telegraph line in 1866, "What hath God wrought?" What indeed?
We live in very dangerous times. We live during a time period that is led and controlled by wolves. Ravenous wolves that hide in darkness, that devour their prey in secret. It's only secret because they don't like revealing themselves. Maybe that's too heavy to start this video with. Let's forget about the wolves for a second and talk about their prey, which is us. We are prey, and we don't even know it. You know, we can speak about the different conspiracies in those groups like the Illuminati all we want. But for most people, that information doesn't really provide much understanding in order for us to stop being prey of these wolves. The problem is that while many of us know the end goal and where this world is leading to, for instance, knowing we are being led into a new world order, if you have followed this channel, you should understand what that means. But as I was saying, while we understand where this world is going, we don't really understand how it is that we're getting there. A couple weeks ago, I made a video speaking about the agenda that is upon us in 2026. And that was in regards to artificial intelligence and cryptocurrencies. But understandably, the full understanding of the change to come, it was not fully comprehended. There is so much to this agenda, and it's understandable why people don't understand. But being that this future is upon us, it's important to be informed so that when you see things and begin to hear about the changes, you can understand fully what it all pertains to, so that you do not get trapped in the agendas that are actually against you, and you think they're actually a good thing that's for you. And so in the midst of everything else, I want to make sure that I inform you on what is actually happening with the changes, so that more people can be informed. Knowledge is power, and by keeping people ignorant, this is just one way in which this system tries to take power from you. I believe the more informed you are, the less likely you are to be deceived and to accept their traps and their tricks. Let me put it to you like this. Do you know what we all are? We are consumers. We consume. I'm not talking about in a retail aspect, but that is also very true. I'm speaking about us as a mass population. If we are not in the position of power and control in this world, we are in the other position, which is to consume. There are people at the top of the food chain in our society that create these products, and we just consume them. We are like Pac-Man, just eating and consuming all day long. But we never get to the power pellets that give us the power to consume those who are coming after us. I don't actually know if that makes sense. Let me come at it from a different direction. We live our lives consuming. We consume what it is that they give us to eat, and we do not know much about it except that we like the taste. For instance, with our food, much of our food today is made in labs. We eat a bunch of chemistry experiments. Much of our meat is cloned and genetically engineered. Much of the food on the shelves is not food at all, but just results of chemistry. Now, there's not much we can do about the meat except try to eat organic, but who really knows what organic means today anyway? But in much of our other packaged food, most of us eat it based on the price and the marketing. But we don't know what we're consuming. Look at the ingredients on this. Many of us eat this every day, but don't have a real clue of what it is that we're eating. We just consume. Another example is with the television. Since the early generations were given the television, we have just been consumers of it. We consume it, but we don't understand the technology. We don't understand how after less than a minute, the television places us in a hypnotic state. We don't understand that the whole purpose of the television was used to program us. I mean, they don't even hide it. They call it television programs. Think about how deep it is when we stare at this screen for hours and days, weeks, years, decades, and we just allow ourselves to be programmed. We even get upset when they interrupt it. Think about that message. We're sorry we have to interrupt your regularly scheduled program.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
When you think about how much of zombies we have to be to just sit around and wait for our dose of routine programming, it can be really sickening to think about. But we don't recognize what we're doing because we're just consumers. We consume. And because of this behavior of consuming things, we do not understand we can be sheep led to slaughter for the wolves. Now, all that, I know, that was pretty deep, and I hope it at least got you thinking. But let me move on to my point. Do you know what the world consumes the most right now of, yet we know very little about it? I mean, if you looked at the title of the video, you know the answer, so it's more rhetorical. The internet is probably the biggest product ever created by the wolves. They created it and distributed it to us, never really explained how it works and its capabilities, and then to hook us in deeper, they made other products to help us consume the internet even more. Until we're at a point in time where we don't even recognize that the internet itself is a product. We are so addicted and controlled by it that we couldn't even imagine a life without it. And this product is being used and developed to bring us into a completely new world. Understand, there is no new world order without the internet. But today, those opposed to the new world order probably couldn't live a life without the internet. It would be very hard. Now listen, I'm not making a message telling everyone to get off the internet, and I'm not judging you for being on the internet. I'm on the internet. That's not what I'm saying here. But for believers, I do want you to know there is a time coming where you will have to. The internet is a product that was made in order to implement the New World Order. It made the world small enough to control. And in the end, it will lead to the system of the mark of the beast. That's what's coming. There are agendas that are happening right now that are in place that many of us do not see because we don't understand their plans. As example, for instance, did you know that they are planning on changing the internet? What I mean by that is planning on pushing out a newer version of the web, Web 3.0. Yeah, they are. Maybe you heard the name but really didn't know what it is. I mean, I know many people have heard about the metaverse. I'm sure most people have heard about cryptocurrencies. But do you really understand what they were created for? All these tools are out there, but they are all a puzzle piece. If you put them all together, you can then see the big picture. In order to really understand where we are all headed, you must understand what connects all these pieces together. You must have a foundation in understanding of the tool that we are all being used and controlled by. You must understand the internet, the history of it, how it is now, and what the future of it will be. And that's what we're going to discuss. I truly advise you to watch this with your children, especially your teenage children, and make sure they understand the internet. This is not something that a teenager, a young child should not understand. They need to see what this internet is. They cannot just consume it without understanding where it's going. They need to have their eyes open to what they're doing on the internet. So please watch this with your children. Let's begin. Okay, so it's important to, again, look at the internet as a product, not just as a utility or a resource. It is a product. And with any product, it's created by someone or some organization, then it is sold to its consumers. Just like with most products, we are sold all the benefits and rarely know or understand what's under the hood. For me personally, years back after COVID, I started looking more into the future of the internet. I guess I heard CNBC speak on Web3, and someone I knew spoke about it around the same time. I always heard those words Web3, but never took the time to really understand it. So I decided to take a bigger leap of understanding into this technology, and after all the research, it made me really understand the agendas that they are bringing this world through. Again, I believe in knowledge and understanding. Hosea chapter 4, verse 6 says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." And I believe that wholeheartedly. So I'm simply led to educate people on topics that have not been properly taught. I mean, if they were even being taught at all. We should not just consume without knowing what it is that we are consuming. By having knowledge, this way we have more control over it rather than it having the control over us. And this is a proper segue into understanding where the topic of this video is going. I know that was a long setup, but I needed to properly lay a foundation, and these videos are meant to make you think. I'm not here to just tell you things. I want you to think. Now, we cannot talk about the future without understanding the past. I am not a tech guy, and my understanding is a very simple one. So I will not be using a lot of their jargon, and it won't be as technical as someone who really understands this topic might prefer. So for my tech guys, just bear with me on all that. Let's discuss the internet. A minute or two, I spoke about Web 3, which is the third version of the internet. I'm not sure that it was common knowledge that there are 3 versions of the internet. I know I didn't know. So to understand version 3, we first need to understand, of course, versions 1 and 2. So version 1 of the internet. This is the internet from the time period of, let's say, 1991 to 2004. In the past, the internet was mostly just a bunch of web pages. They were read-only. You go to a page, click links, and get information. They call that static pages. There wasn't a lot of interaction with the web pages. You didn't log on to websites. You couldn't write on the pages itself. Leave comments, for instance, you couldn't do that. It was like a big Wikipedia with different links that took you all over the web. Like I said, they were read-only. This early version of the internet wasn't even profitable by ads. Viewing analytics was not a part of this version. The average Web 1 user was limited to sending emails and reading information published on web pages. But at the time, you must understand, this was revolutionary. When we first were using it, it was very cool. I remember I was using Prodigy early on, and I thought it was really cool. Now, in understanding this, it's important to understand behind the scenes. I know when discussing Web 1, we are talking about a time period from the 90s, but the internet has been around for a longer period of time than that. It is said that the origins of the internet can be traced all the way back to 1966, when the US Department of Defense began working on a project called ARPANET, the Advanced Research Projects Agency Network. What has been said is that they set out to create a system for remote computer access and communication, simply meaning computers communicating with other computers. This was a decentralized system. When the internet was first created, it was decentralized. Now, let me cover this word because it's really important to understand. Decentralized. This means controlled by several local offices or authorities rather than one single one. When you hear the word decentralized, this word is about control. That's what it means. It's where the control is. When something is said to be decentralized, it's not in the power of one person or one organization, but in the control of multiple groups. Remember that, please. It's important. So again, the early internet was more peer-to-peer, computer to computer. The speed and capabilities were based on the computers used in the network. I mean, this was fine when the network was small, but as the adoption of the internet grew, this way became unmanageable. So when Web 1 was introduced, it came with a different system than when the internet was first invented. Again, the first internet was more of an intranet. All the computers in the one network worked together and communicated with each other. Very much like in your job, they have an intranet where all the corporation's computers talk with each other. When Web 1 was introduced, it came with new protocols that allowed it to be the World Wide Web. The first website ever created on the internet was created, guess where? At CERN in Switzerland, which should tell us all that we need to know about the foundation of the internet. But in regards to the internet, at its creation, the first part to know is that it was no longer decentralized, but now centralized. Power or ownership of the internet was placed in the hands of one group. The DNS, or domain name system, was created to handle the naming and routing of web addresses. You see, in order to create your own website, you have to go through them. That is true to this day. The DNS and their parent organization, ICANN, basically owns most of the websites that we use. ICANN stands for the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. It is the organization that controlled the internet. Like I was saying about our websites, we don't own them, we rent them. We rent our domain names from registrars like GoDaddy and Namecheap, who are authorized by ICANN to rent them. They are the middlemen. But at the end of the day, we don't actually take ownership of these domains. This is why it is possible for websites to be censored, transferred, and seized entirely. And this is the foundation for understanding Web 1. It's an internet that was read-only, that's control was centralized. The ownership and control of the internet is through one organization. All of us consumers just dealt with the middlemen. Okay, hope you got that. Now we move on to Web 2.0. This is the internet we are currently using today. This was from 2004 to this current time. Web 2 is the read and write web. And through this internet, the internet became more interactive. This version gave users the ability to contribute to websites by writing their own content. Web 2.0 took the static content of the Web 1 days and they made it dynamic. So now websites were not just static, but now they could be dynamic, which means that you just can interact with them and you can write on them. We were able to be given dynamic web pages information. But here's the biggest part to this. Not only were we able to give these web pages information, but now the web pages were able to now get information from us. The web was now at this point transferring enormous amounts of information about each of us all over the world who used it. Web 2.0 is where we saw the creation of social networking. People were creating new products on this major product of the internet. And the products were all about increasing our level of interaction with the internet. And it became that the better your website was able to keep people engaged and keep them interacting with your site, the more valuable your site was. It's because of attention. The more attention a site was able to hold, the better. Why is that? It's because of the same business model that the television is based from. You monetize attention through ads. And so with Web 2.0, a major shift happened in the world that was deeper than the television could ever provide. Web 2.0 transformed us into a product. We became data that was able to be studied and monitored. As we interacted on Facebook, as we did Google searches, watched YouTube videos, these centralized companies were now able to gather data about us so that they could serve us what they say is better content so they can keep us